Hello, this is Kenny, and welcome back to another episode of Melchizedek Chronicles. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about a boat. Floating a boat in a lake. So I hope you like this episode. It does have something to do with my usual podcast. My usual podcasts have always to do with something biblical, as I like to say, godly. So this podcast is no different. I mean, the topic is a boat, kind of. I guess you can be the judge of that. Before I say anything about that, however, you may have noticed that new intro music that I just played. That is by a band called The Last of the Lizard Men, and they gave me permission to use part of their music as long as I, told you who it was. And I got their information, and they have new albums coming out on Spotify and maybe other places. I'm not sure, but Last of the Lizard Men, that's who gave me permission to use that song. So anyway, as you know, I, of course, have been doing this podcast for quite some time, a couple of years now. I'm up to about 70, 80 episodes. And, I interview pastors and people, and, we have guests on, and I play their stuff. And, I do a lot of stuff on here. One of the things, I don't really have a lot of spare time. I'm working on a doctorate degree. I'm in seminary. So I'm trying to finish that. It's taken a year and a half, 2 years to get this thing finished. So it's an ongoing process. Also got a new website up called truthseekersministry.org. You can also see that at kennywilliamson.com if that's easier to remember. Moved into a new studio, and it's 99% finished, so I'm recording from there. So we're happy about that. So you can check us out on that website any old time, and you can listen to all our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, you name it. So I really don't have a lot of extra time to do stuff because I also have a full-time job, of course. So I do this stuff in evenings and weekends when I can. And like I needed a hole in the head, I decided to get a boat. Yeah, I needed a boat like I need a hole in the head, I think. So I've always heard that the best, greatest, and the happiest times when you have a boat is when you buy it and when you sell it. And I think I could probably believe that. This boat I bought, it's an old boat. And I do HVAC and refrigeration for a living. And so I'm a very hands-on mechanical type guy. I do everything myself. I change my own engine oil, do my brakes, the whole 9 yards. And I'm blessed to have a son-in-law who's also a diesel mechanic. So he's a mechanic. And some of my good friends that I went to school with and graduated with, they're also diesel mechanics. So, I'm not scared of owning a diesel or anything because, I've got lots of support if I need to work on one. So anyway, I for years and years and years ago, I learned how to water ski, slalom ski, wakeboard, and kneeboard. Okay, so I've spent many hours on the lake with other people, other families, and I've never had my own boat. And so I decided I wanted to get a boat. I didn't want to finance a boat. I don't really like being in debt. And of course I couldn't afford an expensive boat because I didn't want to finance it. So I found an old boat that was well taken care of. It's actually a 1982 model, and that's pretty old. But it looks really nice, and it's a Ski Nautique is the brand, or I guess that would be the model. The brand is a Correct Craft. It's a Correct Craft Ski Nautique. And so they're really cool-looking boats. I've seen them, I had admired them years ago when I was learning how to ski when I was a young man. And, I didn't realize how old they really were. And I didn't realize all the problems that come with an old boat. So I got the boat, and it needs some mechanic work. It needs a lot of little things. And so I took that thing out on the lake a couple of weeks ago, and buzzed it around a little bit, and it ran. Didn't really have any problems. But I discovered that the carburetor was a small issue, and it had a fuel pump issue, and it had a lot of little issues. So no problem. I ordered some parts for it, ordered a new fuel pump for it, a marine fuel pump, installed it myself, and carburetor never came in. So I'm still waiting on the carburetor, in fact. So ordered the carburetor. Because what it is somebody had put a carburetor off of a car, an automobile carburetor. And of course, it's got a V8. It's got a Ford 351 V8 engine in it. And so it will run on a regular carburetor. I did not know that a marine carburetor is different. A marine carburetor has certain safety features built in that prevents gasoline from flooding out of it and flooding into your bilge, and flooding underneath your boat and then catching on fire and burning your boat down or blowing you up. So a marine carburetor has certain safety devices built in because it's in a confined, enclosed space, and the fumes can be very dangerous. Where in a car, it's under your hood, the fumes can dissipate, obviously, because it's got air blowing from outside. So I found this out, and it has a car or an automobile carburetor on it. Works fine, seems to. But that is a small issue. I guess you could call that small. So ordered a carburetor and found out that the fuel pump was also an automobile fuel pump, which was lacking a couple of different safeties. For example, they had bypassed the manual fuel pump, which is on the block and is actuated, when the engine's running. So they had bypassed that, and they had put a little bitty electric fuel pump on it. And so there's nothing wrong with an electric fuel pump on a boat if it's done right. This particular fuel pump, if you turned the key on, basically it turned the fuel pump on. So as soon as you turned your ignition on, the fuel pump was running. Well, come to find out, that's a no-no on a boat, because if you were to have a fire or the fuel line was to rupture or the engine was to die, but the ignition is on, the fuel pump keeps pumping fuel. So it would literally, or could literally, pump enough fuel to keep feeding a fire. So these fuel pumps are supposed to shut off when the engine shuts off. If there's no oil pressure, there should not be a fuel pump running. So I decided to just put a regular manual fuel pump back on it in place of where they had this other one bypassed. And it's a marine style fuel pump to where, if the engine's running, it's pumping. If the engine shut off, there's no fuel being pumped to the carburetor. So I ordered one and put it on, put new fuel lines on it. I also replaced the fuel filter, just a little maintenance stuff, and tested it. I hooked it up to a water hose out here at the house. Seemed to run fine. And so I took it to the lake. Well, after I was at the lake probably 3 or 4 hours before, disaster struck. I mean, I wasn't running the boat that whole time. I like to kind of just sail out there, find a nice place, and just sit and relax. Do some swimming off the boat, maybe listen to some music, just eat a sandwich and relax. I'm not into skiing or anything anymore. I'm really too old. I don't want to get hurt, more or less. So, so the boat hadn't been ran very long. And so I decided to go out, open it up a little bit and hit a cove over there. And as I pull into this cove and I let off the accelerator, I start slowing down. Well, the boat dies. Never would restart. So, make a long story short, opened it up, and sure enough, the carburetor was completely covered in gas. Gas had ran all over everything. Smelled like somebody had dumped a gallon of gas in that thing into the bilge of this boat. So, don't know if the carburetor, needle and seat in the carburetor went out, maybe a bad carburetor. This new fuel pump, I did not check the pressure or anything on this pump. It's brand new. It's supposedly a low pressure fuel pump designed for a carburetor on this boat, specifically for this engine. So maybe the carburetor went bad. Maybe the fuel pump's putting out too much fuel pressure. I don't know. It could be a combination of both. The first time I took the boat out with the old electric fuel pump on it, it never flooded, but I also didn't run it very much then either. So, I really don't know. So the only way to find out is to check the fuel pressure coming out of this fuel pump. And if it's within specs, maybe something just went wrong with the needle and seat in the carburetor. But either way, the new carburetor has finally been shipped. I'm waiting for it. It handles higher pressure anyway. But I am going to check the fuel pressure on this thing. And when I do that, if it's too high, I may put a fuel pressure regulator on it. Either that or try to send this fuel pump back and get another one and check it. It's just I don't want to run into problems of the fuel pump fluctuating from a low pressure that's normal to a high pressure, and then the high pressure fuel pushing past the carburetor's needle and seat and flooding a brand new carburetor. So anyway, so that happened. We got stuck on the lake. Now, prior to going out on the water, I said some pretty heavy duty prayers. I did a lot of praying, that we'd be safe and that kind of thing. And we were. So we get out there, this happens, and I had popped the little hood on this thing, which is in the center of the boat, the engine cover. I had lifted it up and was trying to, see if there was something not obvious that I could actually maybe fix on the water. I was a little concerned because we were in about 80, 90 feet of water, but we were pretty close by some bluffs. And it was a little windy out there, so the wind was pushing the boat. And, of course, I didn't have an anchor with me. So I was like, well, the boat, we can only stay out here so long before we drift into something. And, of course, you're supposed to have an emergency paddle, which I don't have in the boat. Like I said, I just got it. It's missing a few things, so I have no paddle. I guess I could have, tied a rope onto it and tried to swim for it if necessary. So, where I didn't have that engine hatch up very long before some guys showed up. One was on a jet ski and another boat, and they were some kind of auxiliary type Coast Guard. And, asked me what my problem was, told them, and they said, hey, we'll tow you in. So they hooked onto that thing and towed us up to the dock, and all we had to do is basically just sit there and be towed. They didn't charge us anything. They said, oh no, we found you and we'd be happy to tow you in. So they towed us in, and right when we got up to the dock, 3 or 4 guys helped get the boat situated. And then as we were, right there at that situation, at another dock over there kind of next to us, a friend of mine had showed up and his brother, and they had just taken their boat. They had just put their boat in. So it was probably, 1 in the day, something like that, 12:31. We'd actually got out there really, really early. Like we got out there at 8 so we could enjoy the coolness and, easy into the lake, backing the boat up and everything with nobody around, or should I say less people around. There was quite a few people there, but it's also less traffic to drive up there. So, we got there early. So we'd already been there for 4 hours when he showed up. But he was there, and they're like, oh, man, what's wrong? And so, him and his brother helped get the boat on the trailer, with no power, put it up on there, and the winch, of course, is missing on the trailer. That's another one of those things that has to be fixed. So missing the winch, can't winch the boat up, can't drive the boat up because it doesn't run. So, with 3 or 4 grown men, we were able to pull it right up in place and strap it down, and it was... it was very disappointing that the carburetor malfunctioned, but when fuel like that flows all over a hot engine in a confined space, and, all it takes is one spark to ignite the fumes, and, you're like a Roman candle out there, just boom, you're gone. So it was very disappointing, the fact that the boat broke down. And I had a couple of people with me that I'd asked to come out there, and they were really excited. And so, they didn't get to have as much fun because, the boat broke down. And then we had to get towed back. That took about 30 minutes, and it was miserably hot. But the point of the story is, I believe that if you're saved and you're a Christian and you pray, God will take care of you. I believe it. I mean, yeah, the carburetor broke down. Big deal. But and some people could have got really angry and upset about that and threw a fit. But based on everything that happened, I mean, just in order, it was just like, cards falling into place. And, some people say, oh, you got lucky. Well, I just don't believe it's luck. I believe that it really is God taking care of his children. We went out there. I did lots of praying beforehand, and hey, we discovered the problem. The engine died just like it's supposed to. It didn't restart. So the problem was diffused as far as it's not going to blow up now. Somebody shows up within minutes. We're being towed. They didn't charge us any money. It was free. We get to the dock. We've got friends there at the dock. They're like, oh, let's put this thing on the trailer. So a group of people put it on the trailer, and it just really worked out. It really worked out. And a couple of guys that helped me on that helped put this boat on the trailer, they're friends of mine from the same area, and we all go to the same lake, And he's helped me out several other times like that. He's a Christian. He's a Christian man. And, he showed up the first time I took the boat out and couldn't get it on the trailer. And him and his brother were right there, just Johnny on the spot, and they helped me get it right on. And, of course, that's when I realized I needed the winch. I knew it anyway, but so I've got a guy going to fabricate me a special stand for the winch because there's just no place to mount the thing on the trailer. So I'm going to have a little stand fabricated, just a little metal stand for this winch. And so they were right there, Johnny on the spot, and I believe that God, number one, will take care of you. I believe that God will look out for you if you are in fellowship with God. You try to do the right thing. You're saved. You repent for your sins when you do something wrong, and you try to turn away from those sins and try to correct yourself. You pray. And you pray about everything. Some people may think it's silly to pray about going to the lake. Well, I like to get down on my knees and I like to pray and ask God to protect me, my family, my friends, protect me on the trip over there, protect me in the lake. Don't let anybody get hurt, and I believe that God listens to those prayers and answers them. Now, did we have a perfect day and not break down? No. But are the blessings there? Oh, yeah, the blessings are there. I mean, it's so obvious the blessings are there. It's just unbelievable. And, got the boat loaded back up. Didn't even have to do it myself. Somebody else helped, had all this group of people helping, pulled the boat back on the way back, stopped, got something to eat, brought it back home, stuck it under the carport, checked it out, realized the carburetor is absolutely completely flooded. It sat there probably 3 hours. I went out there and it boom, started right up. So, wow. Made it back, no problem. As it turned out, the rest of the day, it was about 103 degrees is what it felt like according to the weather. It was feels like 103 or 105, so it was miserably hot. So I'd have probably got fried out there if I'd have stayed anyway. So it worked out really, really well. And so the parts are still on their way. I'm going to change out the carburetor, and I am going to put a little pressure regulator on it, and I'm going to put a little inline fuel pressure gauge so I can monitor it. Because other than that, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It just has a fuel problem. Of course, it's been setting for many years. So, anything like that can happen. But I tell you what, trying to fix up and maintain an old boat, it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of patience. And it's like you drive the thing or you sail the thing out on the lake and something breaks and then something else breaks. And while you're trying to fix it, 3 more things break. But I really enjoy working on things. I enjoy putting my hands on things. So, I think that it's great to get out and enjoy yourself. There's nothing wrong with it. There are people out on the lake, just like there are worldly people everywhere. And, you could go out to the lake and you can get yourself in a lot of trouble if that's what you're looking for. In the same way you can go into town at 11 o'clock at night and get yourself in a lot of trouble if you're looking for it. But, you go out to the lake and sail out there and, just get out there and do your own thing and enjoy nature and enjoy the water. And, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with going out there and relaxing. So we'll see how this boat deal turns out. I think it'll turn out okay. Like I said, it's got a little problems, but it's an old boat. Now the guys that towed it in, they were asking, they had a little questionnaire they wanted to fill out, for their whatever, I guess to show what they're doing out there at the lake. And they wanted to know what year it was and answered 1982. And they didn't believe it. They're like, wow, this thing, there's no way this thing is this old. I'm like, yeah, it's that old. It was owned by some elderly people that had passed away, and they had it on a lake, and they had it for like 10, 15 years, something like that. Don't know the exact date, but many years, over a decade. And, a few years ago, they had a brand new interior put in it, and the boat just looks immaculate. And, but because of its year and, other factors, like those boats back then had wooden stringers in them. So part of the structure in those old boats is made out of wood covered in fiberglass. There's the fiber or the wood does go bad in time, especially if it gets wet. And, this one appeared to be pretty good, but doesn't mean it's not 100%. So, these boats like this, even though they look really cool and everything, and they run, about the maximum they're worth is about $5,000 just because of their age and they're so old. So, it's a cheap boat. It's a beginning boat, and I would have never done it had I not been able to think that I can work on it. I hope I can work on it if something major breaks. But, yeah. Now, one of the other little things it had is when I bought the boat, the guy said, he said, I think everything works on this thing. He said, but the thermostat or the temperature gauge doesn't work. And so when I took it out, I noticed that the temperature gauge was coming up to about 100, 120, something like that, but then it'd go right back down. So, he thought it needed a new gauge or a sending unit. Well, I got to checking around on the boat and wanted to check the thermostat, and come to find out it doesn't have a thermostat in it. And according to the literature, it's supposed to have a 140-degree thermostat. And I believe that the reason, obviously, the thermostat or the temperature gauge is only going up barely is because it draws in cold water or fresh water off the lake and runs it right through the thermostat housing, right to the temperature sending unit. Well, since there's no thermostat in there, the water is able to go right onto the sensor from the lake. And it doesn't have very much time to heat up, just a very short area in the block before it's funneled over the sending unit. So, make a long story short, it is working. It's just the boat never gets hot enough to register like 160 or anything. Of course, like I said, I've only had the motor running. I start it up, drive it out to a cove, maybe 10 minutes, shut it off. And then sit there for an hour, start it, relocate the boat after the wind has drifted you across the lake, relocate the boat in 10 minutes or 5 minutes. So it doesn't really have time to heat up anyway, and it's drawing water directly out of the lake, and the lake's, not hot yet. And so anyway, it's working. I thought about putting a thermostat in it. I bought the thermostat, haven't put it in it yet. We'll see. It's not like a car. You're not needing it to heat up to run a heater or anything. and it still seems to get pretty warm. And from what I've read, if you are to push the boat pretty hard, high RPMs, even without a thermostat, they will still heat up to like 150 degrees. So, I don't plan on pushing it that hard, and I like to have motors cool or engines cool if I can keep them cool. But anyway, so it's going to be an ongoing process. I thought it'd be interesting to talk about it just because I know there's a lot of boat fans out there. They've got forums and all kinds of websites dedicated specifically to this boat, to a Ski Nautique. So there's a lot of them out there, and it's a lot of fun. But anyway, so that's all I wanted to say about that. I thought it was interesting, but again, I do believe that God does protect us, and I believe that God listens to prayers, and He does answer prayers. And so I just thought it was amazing that, everything would come together, get us home safe, and it's all good, I just wish that would happen every time, and if you're listening to this and, you've had problems, just you got to understand that, life is life, and, problems happen, but you've got to pay attention to what could have happened. There's a lot of things that could have happened a whole lot worse had God not been protecting you. God, I do believe that God protects you. So, of course, as always, if you're not saved, today's the day. There is no time like the present. The Bible doesn't guarantee you, another breath. There's not another heartbeat guaranteed. So today, as the Bible says, today is the day of salvation, because you can't wait. You cannot afford to. Buddy, you get out there and you drown or whatever happens, you're done. You are a goner. So it can happen at any moment. But anyway, so like I always say, hey, thanks again for listening. Check our website out. Check our other podcasts out. Got more coming. If you feel led to, donate anything, if you want, our address is on the website. A way to contact us is on the website, and just go check it out. KennyWilliamson.com, truthseekersministry.org, and any questions or comments, please, like I said, please feel free to give me an email. If it's something I can answer or something I can do a podcast about, I'd be happy to do it. Just got to let me know. So, thanks again for listening, and God bless you.